start with a little bit of context for the show. So if you guys could share the path, the irregular path that led you to the restaurant, that would be super helpful, because this is where, right? So we had these careers. We were making great money. We decided this is too much money. We should open a restaurant.
Harry might have been.
No. Doctors in England don't. It's not quite the same. But yeah, we met doing medical work in Africa, and we struck up a friendship, and then much later on we were like, oh right, this is who we want to be with. And Natalie came over to England to start her PhD. Also, I was doing some doctor work, and we were kind of figuring out what we wanted to do, where we wanted to live, and what the plan was. And Natalie's very good at having a 5-year, 10-year plan. And we were looking at apartments in London to move closer to where I was working. We had a day of being like, we hate all of these places. We don't want to move. We don't want to do this. Let's go eat at this restaurant that was near all of these places. And we'd heard good things, and we're eating, and we're just like, okay, what's the 5-year plan? Where do you want to have kids? Where do you want to get married? Where do you want to do this? What are we doing? Etc. etc. And in the back of my mind, LA had always been an option. And I was born here. My family's here. Nat's family's here. Nat's parents grew up in Westchester, where we are now. And the site of Tomat had been taken by someone else, but I think just before all of this happened, they'd pulled out in the middle of 2019. So this was all in 2019. I'd just come back from doing a stint at Ballymaloe cookery school. That was just for...
What was that about?
I was just like an itch that needed to be scratched.
I mean, I just have to interject and say a common thread throughout this entire story is that Harry is an incredible cook. And that's part of like our, foundational things that we have in common, things we love to do, eat, cook. Harry's very talented. I mean, he was even on like amateur MasterChef during med school. And so it's not like he all of a sudden, in his late 20s, he decided he kind of liked cooking. Like, he's always been very passionate about it. And that's one of the reasons why, I liked him so much.
Yeah. And so we just finished that stint, and there was no thought of ever restaurant, anything like that. But then this whole plan of like, okay, if we're going to move to LA, what's the plan? There is an option to take over this space, or do we just move over and go back into medicine? And like, where do we want to be in 5 years' time? But do we want to do this super exciting path that is very risky, or maybe less exciting and still very hard path? But whatever, we kind of were like, you know what, this would be an amazing opportunity. And when in our life are we ever going to have all of the things align in such a way? And then COVID happened. So, you never know what's going to happen around the corner. But yeah, we decided to take over Tomat, the building. It was just a shell, and started from the beginning. But on the way here, it was like, well, I need to go work in some places that I really admire, and work with other places, like friends' places, that we just wanted to get enough experience as a base to be like, okay, what want exactly Tomat to look like.
And so let's talk about that, because there are like two sides to a restaurant, right? Like there's the restaurant, which is food and beverage and your day-to-day service and all of that. But then there's the business of running a restaurant. And they're equally hard. And I would argue very, very different. And I would also argue that most of us, because it's the more interesting part, right? We refine and perfect culinary and front of house and service and all of that. But it's the business of the restaurant that is actually what makes it sustainable long term.
Mhm.
So I understand like all of the processes that you guys went through to figure out how to run a restaurant. How did you learn how to run a restaurant business? Where did that education come from?
I mean, that's something we kind of learned. We're still learning, as I'm sure a lot of people are. I think that one thing that we were very sure about was not putting all of our eggs in one basket before we started. And so when we went into this, the space itself, if you go into Tomat, is 3 different stories. And so we wanted to set ourselves up with a way to be as diverse as possible, and not only just do dinner, or even just kind of like when we started, we did pastries and coffee and dinner, but now we've evolved into doing, you know, breakfast, lunch, dinner. We have an event space on the 2nd floor, which has really been incredible and really important during slow months like November, December, January, February. And then we have a rooftop, which is something that is amazing in LA because we have incredible weather, but also important for us because we are right next to LAX. We have this insane view of the planes flying in. We have something that isn't really around in the area. There's not a lot of other rooftops. So, I mean, when we were building this out and kind of creating the business in our minds of how to make it, you know, sink or swim, try to give ourselves as many buoys as possible. We just tried to create a space that would be, you know, flexible and sustainable and really serve the community. That's been something that's been an essential part of our narrative, is we really wanted to be something that was for the community and that the community would feel was an asset they were proud of, that, you know, we tried to create something that didn't exist in Westchester. And I really think that we're filling a niche that is important, that so many people are like, you know, Westchester deserves this. And we're so happy that we have a date night spot now.
Somewhere they can support
Yeah.
and be regulars. And I mean, that's the most important thing to having a restaurant business, is having the regulars and people coming back again and again. And that was kind of part of the whole ethos, is like, how do we make Tomat that kind of place? But also, I think Natalie undersells it, but she's done tons of economic modeling and things like that in her career, and so came in be like, okay, well, I know how businesses in general should run. Restaurants are not quite the same as most other places, but having that background has really helped us kind of move forward and be like, this is a business. Like, that's the most important thing. The food, the beverage, the hospitality is always second to the fact that this is a business, but how do we want this business to run is very important.
Yeah, I think we try to use our backgrounds as different as they are from the culinary world. I mean, Harry is a doctor, not that he was a surgeon, but he just got a bigger knife these days, is what I like to say. And I was in public health, so I did very much like, you know, the higher level, like community-based health interventions and things like that, where you're looking at how to make something work economically. And I was working with health and the community, and I still think we're kind of doing that. So yeah, I mean, we had some tools in our tool belt before, and we just kind of tried to transpose them into this world. And it's been, I mean, mostly successful in those ways. I try to use my background as much as I can. And I know Harry does too. I mean, I think there's so many professionals that change, you know,
bedside manner is very important.
Indeed. Amen.
There's a lot of career changes. We're not the only people to do it.
For sure. But I will say that it's typically not this happy of a story for those that do it. I think that, one of the coolest things about the industry is that there's like the only bar to open a restaurant is to not be a felon in most cases and have just enough seed financing that like you can make that dog hunt. But then the other side of it is because so many people get into it with no previous experience. They don't understand that like just because you like to eat at restaurants doesn't necessarily mean you could run one. And then you look at Los Angeles, right? It's second largest city in the country, probably one of the most competitive dining scenes globally. And I think that your strategic advantage is that you're hyper local, that it is rooted in community. But I also think candidly that like if I was to sit across from Michael C. Marusti and be like, hey, why did you open Providence? He'd be like, for the community, right? With his, right? That's it. Because we all we love people. That's why we get into it. And it manifests in all of these different ways. But I can't tell you how many restaurateurs I've sat across from that say they're dedicated to the community. But when I ask, how does that manifest? Like, how do you bake that in on a daily basis? They don't have an answer for me. But I believe that you guys have made it manifest so beautifully at Tomat for this audience, specifically for this audience, right? Like this is a restaurant that was built in collaboration with the community that you serve. Can you talk to me about how this commitment to community has manifested, especially with the evolution of the restaurant over time?
I think that it probably starts with my family, that my great-grandmother landed in Westchester in the 1940s. Then my grandparents both lived their lives throughout in Westchester. My parents both met. They started dating when they were like in middle school in Westchester. The roots go really deep. And I was raised in Montana, so I didn't grow up here. But this has always been a second home for me in the same way that LA is a second home for Harry. And so I've kind of throughout my life watched Westchester transform, from like the early 90s to now, and go through these different iterations of like, there were a lot of mom and pop restaurants, especially when my grandparents and my parents were there, that kind of got phased out and replaced by, I don't know, big box and, like chain restaurants in the 80s and 90s. It felt like Westchester kind of lost this homespun soul that it had. But at the same time, there's an incredible business district. It's really lively. There's tons of families. It's really residential and really tight knit. And I think that a lot of people who live here feel as though it's brushed off as just being like surrounded by LAX and a swath of parking lot and loud from the plains. But in another way, we're one of the only areas, with a major city with an international airport stuck right in the city. There's a lot of, wonderful advantages to that. And so I think that we had this opportunity to take over this space. And we decided that we wanted to kind of try to usher back in this era of, mom and pop and, really serving the community and raising our family here, really setting our roots down here and investing all that we would want, to the community to have to raise our family in, if that makes sense. So that was a lot of the inspiration. All these things are happening that we don't expect, like COVID and like crazy inflation and tariffs right now, but we try to just roll with it. And for example, when COVID happened and, building the restaurant kind of got put on pause, we started building a restaurant garden a few blocks down. And maybe Harry can talk a little bit more about that, but that's something we really started for the community and for the restaurant. And that was a really fun investment that we felt like was essential in so many different aspects of sustainability, even just like creating green space within a big swath of parking lot. Mm-hmm. But then also we have hopes of, using it as an educational tool for all of the wonderful schools that are around us. And of course we supply our restaurant with this and get to bring the chefs in hone their kind of creativity into what we plant now, we get to sow later and put on the menu.
Mm-hmm. And kind of from that, we wanted to have the restaurant as essentially a third space. And the plan was at the 1 year mark we'd open for lunch, and that got pushed way earlier because the community was like, oh, but why aren't you doing lunch just yet? And you're doing just breakfast and you're open for coffee, but we want a little bit more. And we're like, okay. Relax. Let's get it and going. And so within I think 7, 8, maybe earlier, 6, 7, 8 months, we started doing lunch, and you could see people were really wanting that in the area. The rooftop, an amazing space to relax, work on your computer, whatever, and then the event space that can be used for anything. Essentially, we've had pumpkin carving and painting and
like kids classes.
We've had book readings from the bookstore next door. We've had private dinners and everything in between. So it's kind of it has this extra functionality that is not just the restaurant. You don't have to just be coming in for a really nice dinner, or so we think. And there's lots of other options that can be used in the space. The garden was a pretty big undertaking, and perfect time during COVID to dig up a parking lot. And we've been working with some amazing gardeners to make it into the space it is today. But that definitely took a lot of time, and we've had volunteers, we've had help from we got some advice from LMU, the local Loyola College, and so we've just tried to use what we have in the community to build up this space and be like, okay, well, we definitely have a lot of plans for it. We'll try and roll things out slowly so it's a little bit more natural. We're not rushing things. But we've got lots of ways that the community can use us and ways we can try and give back to the community as well.
And can I just bring it full circle that so on our rooftop, we decided to try to pay homage to kind of these businesses and buildings of Westchester past. And we created this beautiful mural with one of the local artists here named David Russell. He's a professor at both LMU and Otis, is the College of Art and Design that's right in Westchester as well. And so we have this really cool mural opposite of the view of the airplane. So just the other side of all of these amazing, restaurants and iconic, buildings built in the 50s, 60s, 70s that kind of created this identity of Westchester that we're trying to, honor and then also try to fit into and kind of carry the legacy through.
I want to talk about awareness. So if I was, and I was trying to compete in the Los Angeles dining scene. I wanted to be where there was high footfall, right? So you look at landing in the fashion district in downtown Los Angeles, or, I had a bar on Hollywood Boulevard. I was always trying to be where the people were because I believe that would not only give me awareness, but that would also make it a lot easier for me to get earned media. I wouldn't have chosen your location and thought, oh, I'm sure I'll get picked up by the Michelin guide here. Right? For sure not. Respectfully. But you
and everyone else.
I don't think we thought that was
you and everyone else.
It speaks to this whole Simon Sinek playing the infinite game, right? That what you did was you chose the place that was right for you. You did the things that were right for you. I sit across from so many independent restaurateurs that are looking, they want to be written up in the trades, right? They want to be an Eater's Essential 38. And how do you get written up by the Times or the local newspaper? How do you get bloggers involved? And something that I think is so interesting about your restaurant is it's on people's list. It's a thing that they do. The people in earned media, the bloggers, the social media influencers, Like they've all made the trek there. And so I think that the solution to getting earned media is being press worthy. And some people do it through great intention and great design, and other people do it through excellence and consistent execution. What was your approach to standing out in what is obviously a very crowded market?
Well, I think I'll start by saying that we Westchester was where we were going to be, but before we even decided, and we tried to do all of our due diligence before coming here and choosing Tomat, and we did a full business analysis of Westchester and the dining scene and housing prices and average median income and all this kind of stuff, to be like, look, you have this area that has, I think it's 70,000 people living here, if not more, who are earning, it's mostly single family homes.
Sure.
And you have Playa Vista and like Silicon Beach and like pretty wealthy companies in the area. And you have LAX, and now you have SoFi, and we're in between all of these things. And it's like, well, why wouldn't we have the foot traffic here? We have this whole community on our doorstep. We have people coming through. You pretty much have to drive to LAX at some point if you want to get out of LA, unless you want to go to Burbank, but okay, fine. And we were like, look, this is an area that could possibly be a great option for high traffic, consistent customers, and consistent new customers as well. So there was a lot of like thought put behind it to be like, you know what, this could be a great area to move into. And so we did think about it. It wasn't just because, oh yeah, we're going to be here, let's open a restaurant here. It was, I think we needed to have a little bit more thought and maybe reassurance for ourselves that we may be okay to open up here. And then from there, we're like, okay, how do we get a little bit more awareness? And there was a lot of, okay, we have to be consistent. We have to be true to ourselves. We have to have essentially a dining experience that we would want, and how we'd want to be treated, and have that as consistent as possible. And we've been trying to do that from day one, and whether we've been successful or not, I mean, it's not always possible, but we've been trying to hold ourselves to a pretty high bar from the beginning. And I think our staff are on that level as well. They like, oh, there's a reason why I want to be here. There's a reason why I want to do what we're doing here. It's really fun. We get to work with amazing ingredients, and we have great relationships with the people who provide our ingredients. And these guys are like, oh, I've never worked with this before. I've never seen this before. And this is really fun. I think, yes, there's a bit of novelty that we chose Westchester, and maybe that drew some people into coming to see what on earth we were doing. I think we've had a pretty good ride from traditional media, and I mean, it's been, yeah, the Michelin guide was an amazing start, and it happened really early on, and then we got onto the LA Times 101 and Esquire, and it's just like, okay, this has all been really amazing. But then we have a customer who's come back for their like 35th visit, and you're just like, oh shit, okay, that's more important.
It is.
That's more important. And you're just like, I guess something must be okay if that's the case. And so that's what you strive to do. And we have some amazing regulars.
I have to say, that is more meaningful to us, for sure. From a business standpoint and from a personal standpoint, the regulars and the people who are in the community who love what we're doing and are so happy that we're here, that means so much more to us than I'd rather hang my hat on those people than on any one piece of media that's ever come out. And it's so helpful to get the word out, but it was never our ambition we didn't set out to get a Michelin star or, necessarily get on the 101, other than to just kind of let ourselves be known and to spread the word. And I think that's been really important for us as owners and for our team, is just to have this internal pride rather than it coming from anything external. Mm-hmm. And it takes a lot of explaining what we're doing to customers and building these relationships, but that's great. That's what we're here to do.
And yeah, for some people that's not important, and maybe they do just enjoy the food. Maybe they don't enjoy the food. That's fine. But we're okay, well, we want to feel pride in what we're doing. And I do think that what we're doing is, maybe infectious isn't the right word, but there's a lot of people who also want something similar. And I mean, we know a lot of people who are trying to become more sustainable, who are trying to become more green, to try and do things a little bit differently, who've altered their lifestyles over the last 10, 15, 20 years towards these attributes. And we're well, this is kind of the culmination of our journey to that point. We think okay, well, if we want to do all of these things the way we want to do them, this is Tomat. This is our space to be you want to try and be sustainable, you want to try and do this. I think we've put in a pretty good framework, and there are a lot of people, especially in California, who are oh yeah, this is kind of similar to what we like and what we want to be like, maybe.
I want to talk about focus. So I opened that bar in Hollywood, and it's a blockbuster hit out the gate. Very low overhead because it's 900 square feet, massive top line. We're keeping all of the money. And what I learned from that experience is that you learn nothing from a positive experience. You learn nothing from success. Nothing. I walked away from that experience going into fine dining. Literally, the fine dining restaurant I owned was the first restaurant I had ever worked in my life. But I knew it would be great because literally everything I touched turns to gold. And then it was a dumpster fire. It was an absolute disaster. I lost $250,000 the first year, spent the first year apologizing to people. It was a shit show. I would wish that on no one. One of the other issues that came out of it was focus. Just a generalized lack of focus. When things are going so well, you begin to think to yourself, well, what else can I do? And what else can I focus on? And all of these things. And this was the nature of my first 5 years as a restaurateur. You two seem far more intentional. Seem like you have very high EQs. And you seem like you don't struggle with focus, at least in the same way that I struggled with focus. When you look at Tomat and you look at the success that you guys have experienced, how does it inform what you focus on every day? Is it always about doubling down on the fundamentals? Do you get distracted like the rest of us? And if so, how do you bring yourself back to center to make sure that you keep the main thing the main thing?
Well, before we started, we created a business plan, and everyone does their elevator pitch and their buzzwords they want to be known for. But really, we had a strong ethos that was around sustainability, not only in our practices, but also, in our business model. And I think that all of those words still kind of ring true. We wanted to be delicious and accessible and, be sustainable and be a place for the community. And we still go back to all those words and they're still true. So I think our focus in that way remains the same. Mm-hmm. Of course we get distracted. There's a million things that happen. You have a to-do list. You think, I can totally accomplish this week. And then you go in and 20 things happen that you didn't expect. But I think that staying true to our what we set out to do, but also being flexible and adaptable to what the community wants. Like, we've changed our portion sizes, some of our wines, some of, our cocktails, just things here and there. And we've really tried to invest in the conversation with each guest about who we are and why we created this and why this tastes a certain way and what we're all so excited about in the kitchen and what we hope you take away from the experience and appreciate from it. I think those are all the same as what we set out to do from the very beginning.
Mm-hmm. I think definitely the opening period was a period of
experiments.
Deep suffering and experimentation.
Yeah, exactly. And I think we went in with a mindset of, okay, this is what a lot of other people are doing. This has been like what we've seen some awesome other places around town doing, or let's see how the community reacts to it. And it was a bit of like, okay, maybe this isn't quite right. This doesn't work. This does work. And we focused ourselves a lot after I think the 6-month mark. I mean, the first few months were a blur anyway, but
probably for anybody, unless you're part of a restaurant group that has like
everything set up.
Yeah, exactly.
So
sure,
it was very much like also working in the space, and we have an amazing space that is capable of a hell of a lot, and we just didn't have time to do some of the things that we really wanted to do. And once we focused ourselves and we're like, okay, no, this space can do all of these things, and this is how we're going to do it. And yeah, and once we started having everything under our belt, we kind of were able to focus a little bit more on the kind of fun projects that we really wanted to start using more of. And one of the things has been, a couple of the things is the fermentation program, getting that kind of into the menu. At the beginning, we were a little hesitant, and we were like, well, we have a bunch of these fun things, but we don't want to scare people off, and we're putting some of it into the menu, but we're not actually telling anyone that we're doing it. And now we're full on, like nearly everything on the menu has something from our fermentation, I want to say closet, but it's more pantry. And then our drinks menu has become the most amazing, like experimental, and using all of these, not just byproducts, but fermentation products. And our GM Miley has been taking that whole side of the business under her wing, and that has developed into something maybe beyond what even we thought it would be, and that has been an amazing part of the journey, being like someone that's not us coming in and being like, hey, let me do this, and I'm gonna do it really fucking well because I absolutely love all of this. And we're just using seasonal and ingredients that I can only get at this certain time. Yeah, I'm in. And from that has been awesome.
I think that that's a testament to making sure you have the right team in place to help uplift your ideals and help, drive through your focus instead of, we're always happy to hear a devil's advocate on certain things, but to have somebody who have a whole team in place that are excited to be there for these reasons that underpin our business in all these different ways is so helpful. And, it took us a while to get that team, and we have a really wonderful team in place now. We're very proud, and everyone's excited to go into work every day. You can feel it.
How do you do that? Of course. Look, mothers are great. Mother's Day is the pits. It is the absolute. I mean, my God. I mean, the expectations are just so high on Mother's Day. Like, no one walks in happy. Everybody's hungry, and everybody's very nervous that their mother's going to be upset. That's why we had a standardized policy of getting everyone shit-faced. We felt like if we could get everyone shit, that's it, right? Like, it's like complimentary bubbles until you vomit on the table. Whatever it takes to keep the moms and the daughters and the sons happy. But let's talk about that team. But I digress. Let's talk about the team for a minute. So, you hear it nationally, right? The teams are disengaged, that nobody wants to work in the industry and all of that, which I think was like a headline that came out post-pandemic. But like, I did this for 20 years in Los Angeles, and everyone I hired was always one decent audition away from telling me to go fuck myself. I never hired a single career server or bartender. Everybody was on their way to somewhere else. And I struggled and eventually figured it out, how to create that level of team engagement so that people felt a sense of ownership over the business, over the outcome, over the guest experience. But I fumbled my way there, and it probably took half a decade to figure it out. What was the secret sauce for you guys? How did you end up creating people that genuinely care and do excellent work?
It's hard because you describe that so eloquently, that they're on their way to somewhere else. And that's something that I wasn't used to, from my previous career. We were all investing in this one thing with this one outcome. And now we're in this business where often this is like a second job or, getting people through school. And it takes a minute to kind of wrap your head around that and still figure out how to invest in these people and understand their time frame with you and what that's going to look like for the business. But I do genuinely think that we keep people interested and excited about their job by these different elements that underpin our business, like sustainability and fermentation and, whatever Harry finds at the farmer's market comes on that week, and challenging people. A lot of people want to challenge. Maybe a lot of people don't, but we had to figure out the people who wanted a challenge.
Yeah.
And we're going to rise to that occasion.
Yeah. And we do a lot of basics that may not be done as often at places like ours, if that makes sense. So things like fish butchery or whole animal butchery and having to process these amazing ingredients and picking stuff from our restaurant garden and being like, oh, this is this and this ingredient that I've never seen before, or why does this carrot look like that? And you're like, well, it's organic and it's from our garden and we didn't plant them very well and they look a bit weird, but they taste amazing. And so these guys and we have taken a lot of our staff from culinary school kind of before they've been trained a certain way. And we're like, well, I did this once in culinary school, but now I'm doing it every week here. And this is something that I really wanted to learn. And we make our own sausages, we make our own charcuterie, we do fish charcuterie, we do this, we do that, we do like We make koji from scratch. We make our own misos. We do all of these like weird and wonderful things.
And not just in the kitchen, but baristas do it. And bartenders do it. So it's all these different programs are, have the chance to get their hands dirty in these really fun ways.
Yeah. Our pastry team barbecue fruit over our fire. We have like mix and matching of different specialties, kind of like crossing over, and one team teaches the other this, the other team teaches them that. And so we're trying to like go back to basics of like, this is how we've seen it done, or not how we've seen it done, but maybe how we like things to be done. Yes, it's a little bit harder, it's a little bit more time consuming, but the result of like being able to do each step and see where you end up is the reward.
I was trying to figure out how I wanted to round out the episode. And it always comes from me, right? Because I'm selfish. And I was trying to figure out like, how do I, like, what is it that I truly want to understand? And I mean, for context for you, my phone's on do not disturb. It's always on do not disturb. And the reason it is because I have all this trauma around the phone. I used to tell people all the time, like, whenever the phone rings, it's always bad news. It's never good news. No one is ever calling me to see how my day's going, right? It's always something's wrong at the restaurant. Something unfortunate happened. This delivery didn't. It's always, and it was always this very much this fight or flight thing for me. And then I started thinking about like all of the damage internally. And I was thinking about my wife and how I kept so much of that from her, right? And how I felt like if she knew everything that was going on at any of the restaurants at any given time, that she would be overwhelmed, that she would be afraid. And so I tried to insulate her from that, when I would argue she's probably more than strong enough to handle whatever I threw at her. But she wasn't in the business in the way that like you two are very much in the business together. And I wonder, how do you strike balance? How do you talk as partners and then as a couple as well, and not make it always about work or let it be always about the personal life? How do you strike a balance with a growing business and a growing family in a way that has some semblance of sustainability, I guess would be the word? Teach me, please.
That's a beautiful question. Again, it's so insightful. I think that part of it is that we're equals in this business, just as we're equals in, as being parents. Maybe the ratio looks a little bit different. For example, we have a 5-week-old kid right now, so I'm at home a little bit more than Harry is. But at the end of the day, we're partners in both these things. And sometimes we have to go to bed. I'd say often we have to go to bed talking about work and waking up talking about work. But for me, maybe because I think we're both kind of equally ambitious in these ways, it takes away any type of resentment that might have been there, especially maybe from a female perspective, if that makes sense. It's not like he's gone all the time. He's at work all the time, and I'm just kind of home with the kids all the time. There's this balance that I'm really grateful for. And I also think that, being parents in the real world has helped us be parents in the business world, because, at the end of the day, it's us, and we're here to take care of the team. We're here to take care of the guests. And I mean, I don't know. It's a hard question to answer.
I think
it is. I agree.
I think doing it together and starting it together means that we don't have the kind of not sharing the problems. Yeah. We're constantly sharing the problems with each other and being like, oh, fuck, this happened. And they're like, oh God, how do we deal with this? Okay, well, let's do this, and this, and we work it out. And you're like, oh yeah, fine, yeah, it's resolved. That's okay. And yeah, the first like 8 months of stress, I think was the most strain of being like, hey, what is bothering you? What's wrong? What isn't working right? And we were kind of both on, was doing more of the back end and front of house, and I was trying to do back of house, and we're both like trying to get these two parts of the entire business to meld in a way, or up and running. We were just trying to get it up and running, and when something wasn't working, maybe more on my end, and be like, what? Like how like was I not talking to Nat enough, and be like, but then it was like, oh wait, can you help me? I need help. And when you can be like, oh, I need help with this isn't working out for me, and I don't have the view of it to fix it. I need your input. Please give me your input. Please help me fix this. Fuck, what's going on?
I feel like we come from very similar or like complementary backgrounds, and we have like the same kind of mind and goal, but we have different skills, and we have like complementary skill sets, if that makes sense. Harry's much more used to sleep deprivation and high pressure and many more things, just kind of being in the moment and, beyond like the brilliance of like the menu and the food. And I think I come much more from the realm of research and writing and communicating. And it's really been fun to watch those skills come out in this business. And it's been really important that we're both a part of it, and that we both share this responsibility, to be honest. And yeah, I mean, things happen at the worst moment, like giving birth 5 weeks ago. That day, I think 2 people didn't show up for their shift, and then we never heard from them again, who were like important. Everybody's important. No one's really more important than the other, except for maybe in a manager position. But I wouldn't have wanted him to deal with that by himself and feel stressed about that and me at the same time. It was, we just share that like, oh, fuck. Of course this happened today kind of thing.
Right.
Like you do kind of laugh about it, and then you just say, all right, what are we going to do? What's the plan? And who's going to do what? And how do we make this happen? It's nice to have a partner in that who's with you all the time. And you don't feel bad about messaging before bed because you're in bed together going, okay, how are we going to do it? What are we going to do? I don't know. It's like a privilege at the end of the day to be able to do this together. And we're bringing our kid into work, and, he's with me a lot of the time and he's with Harry a lot of the time. So
yeah.
We're lucky to be in that position where we can bring him in.
Yeah.
Got one last question for you. What should we steal from you? You exist within this industry. You're relatively new entrants. And not only have you done what many restaurateurs fail to do, owning and operating a successful restaurant business, but you do what I would argue most outsiders fail to do pretty much out the gate, which is own and operate a successful restaurant business. And so, there's always this moment when the shit hits the fan where you think to yourself, like, why, God? Why did this happen? But success leaves clues too. And so when you look back at the tactics, the tools, the strategies that you've employed to get to where you are today, what should we steal? What should we internalize so that we can achieve the same level of success?
I do think that obviously consistency is always going to be the name of the game, and to get some of the great accolades we got, yes, it is about consistency, but to get to that point is also hard to be consistently at a certain level. I personally think a lot of, especially the menu side of things, is just from sourcing, like in our sustainable way. Yes, it's all very sustainable, but we're working with a lot of amazing California producers, and we've built up this great network of amazing quality that is definitely in California, and it's not that hard to find. I know that's hard in a lot of other places around the country or the world to have like an amazing, like one of the world's biggest pantries on your doorstep. But I still find that maybe places take it for granted here, and it's maybe not used as much. And so I think for my side of the business, that has been one of the most important things to me, being like, I'm a little rigorous with some of the produce that we get, and we're just like, well, we want to have the best, and we may want it a little bit different, and we just want it seasonal, but we're trying to show what's amazing about being in this place at this time. And I think that's really fun when you look at it like that. So you could be anywhere in the world and be like, well, this is what I have to work with. How do I express myself through that lens? I mean, no matter where we would be doing the same thing, be it England, the US, anywhere. It's all about like, how do we show off this place that we are, but with our voice? I feel like that's the most important thing, especially for the food side of things. Maybe not for the rest of it.
And I think that something we haven't really touched upon that also is an important part of our story and our narrative is that we spent, I was only in England for 3 or so years, but Harry grew up there. And, around Europe, there's these cuts of beef that are standard that we've kind of transposed or tried to find the equivalent here that not everybody kind of takes to and understands. And there's elements of how businesses are run that are just a given in places like England and Europe where, health insurance is just provided. We've tried to also bring that over into what we're doing. And it's hard. I mean, it's hard to kind of take a model that works one place and put it in the US. But we've really stuck to our guns on those type of things. I know those are two very different examples, but they're meaningful, I think, to us. And sticking to our guns has been very important in trying to educate and make it work, make a business work that what am I trying to say? Make it, we're trying to do our employees well, and we're trying to do our guests well. What's a good way of saying that?
I guess
in those examples,
we've seen outside what it can be like, and we prioritized a few things before starting this business. And I think one was the business, the next level was our employees, and then I think third we put our customers.
Yeah, that is true.
And
that is true.
I think we needed to be like, look, the most important people in this business are our employees. We need to take care of them first before we can take care of our customers. And if you treat your staff right, you're going to have a much better outcome, and you'll be able to treat your customers right. And the customers are not always right. Bullshit. And I think we spoke to some friends and local restaurateurs, and they were like, you know what? We've had to bar people. We've had to put their faces up, and we're just like, enough. We need to if our staff are not treated well by these customers, then we're not serving them. We're not going to kowtow to people like this. People need to be on their best behavior. You're coming into our house. We are here to serve you, but there's a reciprocity of like, you're coming here to eat. We expect a certain level of
respect
as well. And it goes both ways. But I think that's an important one. Like, treat your employees right, and you'll have a good business, a better business. It may not work out, but at least your employees will be treated right.